Hello and welcome to another historic milestone episode of the Bit Beacon broadcast. It's episode 080. It's April 15th, 2025. You can call me Kodax, and I'm your host through this week's broadcast. So I wanted to quickly start off by sharing two recent purchases that came in. These are both imports. Whoops. I got these from Game Exporter from the Asia region territories. Play Asia. I've mentioned them before. They're good at securing games that have English releases in Asia that don't, for whatever reason, get normally localized out in the West or physical releases in the West. They often have physical copies that release in territories like Singapore and Hong Kong, which do have English language on the disc a lot of times. So the first one I have here is a visual novel called Witch on the Holy Night. I have this one on Nintendo Switch as part of a special deluxe set, and it's gone up like significantly in value, multiple hundreds of dollars. So I decided I would buy a standalone copy. This is a Japanese copy actually, which does have English on the disc. And so yeah, I'll end up playing it this way. I don't really feel like I should open up the Switch one because it's so valuable and it would lose a lot of its value if it was opened. And then this next one I have is Dead or Alive Extreme, it's Venus Vacation, Dead or Alive Extreme Prism. So Dead or Alive is a long-standing fighting game going back to, I think, the mid to late 90s, maybe very early 2000s. And they have had some spin-offs over the years, notably the Extreme series, which started off with multiple beach volleyball titles. So the Extreme sub-series continues today in the form of I guess it's like a relationship simulator where you get to basically hang out with some of the characters of the Dead or Alive series in a beach setting. It says, all right, this is it right here. On this island, the moment of love. On the Venus Islands, a land of everlasting summer, you meet 6 girls. As you interact with the girls as their boss, a variety of unique stories unfold. The heart-fluttering sensation of casual gestures, the thrill as you draw closer to your love interest, and the worry about which girl to choose. Are you ready to experience true romance on the islands of everlasting summers? Level up your happiness. Koei Tecmo Taiwan presents this game. So for reasons maybe obvious, this game is not being released over here in the West. It's a little, I think, weird and strange for most audiences over here. But this is the kind of stuff that I see as like being super weird and unique. And I just absolutely have to have it in my collection, even if I probably never even install or play the game. But yeah, I had to have this weird game. Okay, I did finish up Sleeping Dogs this past week, as well as both of its small DLC expansions. I did not go for the Platinum Trophy for the game. It seemed like a lot of grindy work, and I just wasn't feeling that motivated or that in love with the game to really go all the way to get that Platinum Trophy. I did ultimately enjoy my time with the game. I would recommend it heartily, as long as you're not like too easily offended. You gotta remember it's got like humor and jokes and things from 15 years ago at this point, so it's definitely not politically correct in a lot of ways, but I still found myself having a good time with the game. Again, this is a game that is supposedly being turned into a movie by Simu Liu, the guy who was the lead actor of the Shang-Chi Marvel movie. So yeah, it's something to possibly look forward to. He's apparently developing it himself. I think I maybe mentioned this before. So it's something he's passionate about. He must have really enjoyed the game when he played it some years ago. And yeah, it's a goofy, over the top, but also sometimes serious, but like serious in a way where it's kind of bad that you're laughing at it, kind of a thing. I really enjoyed it overall. So yeah, check out Sleeping Dogs if you're into sort of Grand Theft Auto, but set in Hong Kong in 2010ish or so. And yeah, have fun driving around the city and being an undercover cop slash gangster. It's a good time. All right, so last week I talked about the tickets for the Honkai Star Rail second anniversary event, and those did go up last week, and I was actually able to secure a ticket. Tickets sold out almost immediately for both showings, and it was a bit of a mad scramble to get them. I had some errors on my end trying to get the tickets initially, but I was finally able to check out after a couple failed attempts. Since I got into the earlier showing, I will probably make my way down earlier in the day to enjoy the other offerings that they have, such as the voice actor panel, and I believe there was also like a merch shop or something, although I'm not planning on spending any money. I saw what they're apparently going to be selling, and it didn't seem that interesting. Since the day after the event sold out, Hoyoverse announced that the Star Rail concert would be making its way to select theaters around the United States. So for those of you near Woodridge, Illinois, Plano, Texas, Houston, Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada, Orlando, Florida, Somerdale, New Jersey, Mesa, Arizona, Sacramento, California, or Mountain View, California, and Bellevue, Washington, can attend an in-theater screening of the concert in partnership with select Cinemark theaters in those cities. All of the screenings are on May 10th, the same day as the anniversary event in Irvine, and tickets to this will cost $15 and includes 2 of the same commemorative items available at the anniversary event, specifically the poster and the commemorative ticket. All the other goodies that they're giving out in Irvine, if you got a ticket, will not be available anywhere else, it seems, unless you're at different events in other parts of the world. But as for the United States, these are the only options. I did see a lot of people complaining online that there were a lot of states and big cities that were missing from the list. But this is an improvement over last year. Last year, there was only that one event in Los Angeles for the first anniversary and nothing for nobody else. So, baby steps next year. Hopefully they can expand more. That being said, I would hope they go back to a more immersive style event next year for at least the main anniversary event, because this year does seem to be sort of more of a, hey, there's going to be a panel, and then you get your merch swag, and you go watch the presentation in the theater. And that's, just okay compared to like the super immersive experience one night in Penacony that I got to go to last year. So before we jump into my impressions of the Nintendo Switch 2 games that I played at the Nintendo Switch 2 Experience event last week, I wanted to talk about a big topic of discussion in the gaming community, specifically Nintendo Switch 2 software prices. Nintendo announced several new games at their Nintendo Direct 2 weeks ago, and several games that are getting the upgrade treatment from Nintendo Switch to Nintendo Switch 2. So let's specifically look at these launch window Nintendo published individual game prices and break down what's going on with each game. So we have a brand new Mario Kart game, Mario Kart World, with an open world that is going to cost a whopping $80 US. This is the first time a standard retail game from either of the 3 big first-party console manufacturers has launched at such a high price. In recent years, the sight of a $69.99 game from publishers like Sony and Microsoft has become pretty common, but Nintendo has mostly balked at that trend outside of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But what this tells us is that Nintendo is not only willing to go over $70 price point and instead plant the flag of the first $80 game. This is likely to have wild side effects in the industry, with other publishers following in Nintendo's footsteps and pricing their games similarly. I say it'll probably be less than a year before Nintendo or before Sony and Microsoft are also selling $80 standard games. There's some worry in the industry that Grand Theft Auto 6, the standard price is going to be $100 for that game, and I could honestly see that being real. Next, let's look at Donkey Kong Bonanza. This is a brand new single-player Donkey Kong 3D platformer adventure game, and it's launching at $69.99. I think from looking at the content of this title, we can expect that this will be the standard price for most of Nintendo's big games. Their competitors have been launching games at this price for the past 5 years, so it's here to stay, at least for Nintendo Switch 2. I think we can expect most first-party games to launch at $70. Now we are going to veer off into the messy realm of old Switch games getting Nintendo Switch 2 versions. This is where things get complicated and people are kind of upset about it. So let's take a look at The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, which is being priced at $70 US. Now you might be thinking, Kodax, isn't that an 8-year-old game? Where do they think they can get off charging $70 for it? Well, I'd point you to look at the price of the Switch 1 version of Breath of the Wild, the original Switch. Yep, Nintendo is still selling that 8-year-old game for $60. So where did they come up with $70 for the Switch 2 version? Well, Nintendo has developed a solution for those people who already own the original Nintendo Switch version of this game and want to upgrade to the Nintendo Switch 2 version. They will offer a $10 digital upgrade path to play the Nintendo Switch 2 version while you have the cartridge for the Switch version installed into your Nintendo Switch 2. So this is pretty fair if you ask me. PlayStation offers a similar $10 upgrade scheme to play some of their upgraded PS5 versions of PS4 games. So what Nintendo has done for this version of Breath of the Wild, sold specifically for Nintendo Switch 2, is add the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade into the standard retail price, $60 plus $10, and that's how they come up with $70 price tag for Breath of the Wild. In fact, this same idea is being implemented for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, which will cost $80 on Nintendo Switch 2. That's the standard $70 retail price plus the $10 upgrade baked together to come up with that price. The good news is that some of these Nintendo Switch 2 $10 upgrades will be offered to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack subscribers at no additional cost. If you already own the original Switch version of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, you'll be able to get the upgrade as part of your plan for free. We aren't sure if the free upgrade offer will include other titles eventually, but it's nice to at least see these two upgrades, included at no additional cost to subscribers on day one of Nintendo Switch 2. The last game I want to talk about is Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed Worlds. Nintendo is charging $80 for this. This is another game that was previously released for Switch at $60, but is getting charged a $20 premium for the Switch 2 version. No lie, an $80 Kirby game is pretty wild. So the Switch 2 version includes not only the $10 upgrade, but new game content exclusive to the Switch 2 version of the game, called Star-Crossed Worlds, which they must be valuing an additional $10. That gets $60 for the base game, $10 for the upgrade, and $10 more for the additional content. So that gets us all the way to the $80 price point. There's no word on if those wishing to upgrade their Switch 1 copies will be able to buy the upgrade and additional game content separately, or if they will only have the choice to spend $20 on the bundle of the upgrade and the new content. Now, I completely understand that some are disappointed in these prices. Personally, I would have liked to see the Switch 2 versions of Switch 1 games match their previous price point, not be more expensive. As for Mario Kart, World, and Donkey Kong, this is going to be the new normal for Nintendo. I expect at least one title each year to hit the $80 price point, with most continuing to be $70 or $69.99. Because Nintendo rarely permanently discounts their games or puts them on sale, the value of Nintendo Switch 2 games will hold strong. If you buy physically, you can at least be confident that your purchase will hold its value long term. You could even resell it back after you complete it, or if you're looking to get some of your money back. Nintendo is known for doing things their way, and I'm detecting a little bit of arrogance from them at the start of the Nintendo Switch 2 era. Hopefully they can kind of keep that in check to an extent without going too far with just the crazy, greed run wild. So now I shall regale you with all my time at the Nintendo Switch 2 Experience event in Los Angeles. I arrived at the venue, Television City, which is known for serving as a television production studio for many CBS television shows over the last 70 years. I arrived a little more than an hour before it opened, and found myself to be the second person in line, behind a nice game wearing a Bowser Jr. shirt named Topher. While waiting to check in, it became clear to me that Nintendo had spent a lot of effort making sure they had a well-run event. multiple buses came by, dropping off more than 100 workers wearing red Nintendo Switch 2 staff t-shirts at the venue. It was then that it became clear to me that this was going to be a big deal inside. Around 9:30 a.m., they started checking us in. I showed my QR code on my phone, and I received my attendee badge and wristband. We then moved to another line where we hung out for about another 15 minutes or so before they let us into the venue a little bit early. In this initial waiting area, they had various displays set up with the hardware, boxes, and accessories behind plexiglass display cases. They also had a handful of stations where you could go hands-on with an untethered Nintendo Switch 2. This was my first stop. The unit itself was disabled, so I couldn't play any games, but I could get a feel for the feel, weight, and physical functionality of the device. The attendant walked me through the method for detaching and reattaching the new Joy-Con, how to deploy the new kickstand, and get a feel for the updated thumbsticks. So what are my impressions of the physical device itself? Well, I gotta say, I absolutely love the matte finish of the device. While it is certainly made of plastic, in hand it does feel very premium. The finish feels like it did a lot on the original DSi. It's definitely bigger than before too. Even less portable, some might say, me included, but the weight felt good, not too heavy and not so light that it felt cheap. They're definitely going for a more premium, more adult feel, which leads me to believe that the Nintendo Switch, the original model, will be sticking around for quite a while to become the more entry-level unit, while the Nintendo Switch 2 is marketed more towards a more sophisticated, affluent audience. The stick certainly did feel better too, with a wider range, which I would at the time guess would lead to greater input precision, but the real test would come from actually using it. I do also want to talk about the kickstand. It's really thin. It's wide, but really thin. Like it almost looks like a bracket, like a bracket you would put around some words. And I guess the guy was like, you should pull out right in the middle where there's this little lip, because he was encouraging me for to pull it out there, because I think if you try to pull it out from the sides, you could kind of damage it maybe. So I'm a little worried that this new kickstand is not really that great. I mean, certainly it's going to be better than the original kickstand for the original Nintendo Switch, and it's still going to allow you the full kind of flexibility that the Nintendo Switch 2 OLED kickstand did, but it feels not nearly as good as the Nintendo Switch OLED kickstand. It's definitely more wobbly when you're first pulling it out and deploying it. So I would take what he said. You want to pull it out in the middle bottom of the kickstand and not at the sides of the kickstand, because you want it to come out of the system together at one time rather than on one side over the other, because it almost looks like it could snap maybe. After my hands-on time with the console, I waited until they let us into the next room to play our first game at 10 a.m. on the dot, Mario Kart World. This new Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive Mario Kart title features a series of interconnected courses and an open world map in between all the courses. So for this first round, they had us pair up. So my boy Topher and I got together and we made our way over to one of the demo stations. Here we got to play a couple of Grand Prix races together alongside the CPU. Mario Kart World now features 24 racers in each race, so the mayhem is multiplied several times further than previously. I was really impressed with the roster variety, including many of the classic Mario characters in new outfits. I'm not sure if these outfits constitute being wholly new characters with their own stat values, like weight and speed and things like that, but it was nice to see the variety. For my first match, I played as Daisy in one of her alternate outfits. Let's just say Topher was just okay at Mario Kart. I beat him 2 or 3 rounds we played together, though it didn't always come in first. Those pesky blue shells kept getting in the way of my plans at the end of each race. Initially, we were playing each other on the large screen, holding Joy-Cons in the controller grip. The grip did feel much better than the original grip on the Nintendo Switch 1. Like I said, the overall feel of the Nintendo Switch 2 and its accessories is more premium. Before we moved on to the next room, the attendant let us play directly on our own Switch 2 devices. This was the only time I was able to play any game directly on the Switch 2 screen. The rest of the experience was entirely holding controllers and playing on TVs. The screen is really, truly gorgeous. No, it's not an OLED panel, but man, it still looks absolutely fantastic. It seems they aren't cheaping out here and using a quality screen. Mario Kart World was running at 60 frames per second on the handheld. I don't believe there will be 120 frames per second mode for this game, as it is visually demanding. I'm curious if 4-player split-screen gameplay will run at 60 frames per second, unlike Mario Kart 8, which dropped to 30 FPS with anything more than 3 players sharing a screen. With 3 players or more, I mean. For the next and final round of Mario Kart World, we were brought into another room and split into groups of 24, where we would all be competing in a new game mode called Knockout Tour. In Knockout Tour, you race on 6 different connected tracks with no downtime. The first 5 tracks, instead of a finish line, have a checkpoint that determines how many players can pass through before the others are eliminated. Each checkpoint reduces the number further until the final track when only 4 players remain, and those 4 players ultimately are the ones that race to become the winner. This mode was a highlight of the day for me. The elimination of players brings a heightened sense of tension, especially once the checkpoint comes into sight and you are right on the precipice of being eliminated. Crossing that line as the last person in a group feels so good, like you just earned a second chance to prove yourself. I actually made it all the way to the final round, and let me tell you, it was exhilarating jockeying for first place. As the earlier players were eliminated, they would step away from the demo and go into the big room with all the other games. So the Nintendo demo attendance slowly started to converge around a smaller amount of players who were remaining until there were just the 4 of us. Eventually I had a nice crowd around me cheering, and then I won. I couldn't believe it. It was just Mario Kart, but it felt like I was a world champion. I popped off, as the kids say, and jumped what felt like 5 feet into the air, and I screamed, "Hell yeah!" The attendants were all clapping and cheering. I heard one guy say, "I knew this guy was going to be a winner." I had hoped that maybe they had a gold medal of honor to wear around the rest of my time at the venue, but alas, there was no bonus. I saw my attendant, my main guy who was with me, he reached underneath the station, and I thought he was going for something, but no, it was just his water bottle. So yeah, nothing for winning except for that just amazing, incredible feeling. Finally, I was the last person to make it into the main venue of the main demo area of the venue, where more than a dozen games were available to play. Some of those being Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, Dragon Drive, and Nintendo Switch Online GameCube app, Cyberpunk 2077, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Hades 2, and upgrade pack games like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Mario Party Jamboree. At this point, I only had about an hour and 20 minutes left, so I wanted to make the most of it and play the games that I really wanted to play. So I started this new part of the experience by heading over to Metroid Prime 4, Nintendo's premier exploration-based first-person shooter. Metroid Prime 4 is a sequel nearly 20 years in the making, as the previous game in the series, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, launched all the way back in 2007. In this demo, we were able to use the new Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con. Wristbands on, of course, we don't want to be breaking any TVs. Since I was using the Joy-Con, this enabled me to play the demo using the Joy-Con's new mouse-like functionality, which you can switch to seamlessly without going into any menus. Just turn one of the Joy-Con on its side and start sliding it around on a flat surface, and voila, you have a computer mouse-like aiming precision on a Nintendo console. I found myself going back and forth between traditional controls and the mouse-like controls during the demo. While I enjoyed the precision of the mouse controls, it was taking some time to wrap my head around holding the Joy-Con in that way and pressing the face buttons, the A, B, X, Y, because you're now using your thumb to press those buttons. It was your thumb is pressing them from a different angle, than you're normally used to pressing them, while you're using your index and your pointer finger very differently than you're used to on a traditional controller, I guess. Just the positioning alone. It was like the 3D spatial awareness. It was just kind of messing with me. So while I got it to work, I feel like I did need more time to really get used to it. Samus's abilities are held, you trigger them, by going to morph ball and things and using those face buttons. So just holding it sideways just felt kind of weird because, I'm thinking that I'm using a mouse where I just have 2 buttons, but no, I got 4 other buttons on the side where my thumb could hit. But, so I did go back and forth, but I would say I probably ultimately spent more time. Actually, it's about 50-50, I'd say. The demo itself started with Samus landing in the middle of an intense firefight between the Federation Marines and the Space Pirates, and Samus was tasked with recovering a strange artifact that the Space Marines had, taken from the Federation, or that the Space Pirates had taken from the Federation. As I made my way through the various firefights, both indoors and outdoors, I made use of some of Samus's basic abilities to get through different obstacles and passageways, including using the morph ball to roll around various crawl spaces, and watching in horror below me as Federation Marines were being killed by space pirates. There was quite a bit of voice acting, though not from Samus herself. She's staying silent as expected. Eventually, the demo leads me into an arena where a large, powerful space pirate, Abarax, appears in full battle armor, but then a Metroid creature attaches itself to Abarax and fuses with it. Abarax's armor falls off its chest and its back as it transforms into like a more grotesque version of it, with these Metroid bulb-like things like protruding from his chest. For a first boss battle, I felt Abarax was pretty great. He requires Samus to use all of her current abilities in order to stay alive, from double jump, morph ball, missiles, lock-on, and charge beams. Samus also has a great side dodge ability, which I think might be new, that she can use in order to avoid some of the vicious swipes of Abarax's claws. If you get caught by Abarax, you're in for a bit of a jump scare, as it yanks you right up to its front of its face and its mouth, and you have to spam the A button to break free. After the boss battle, the bounty hunter, Sylux, who debuted in Metroid Prime Hunters for Nintendo DS, appears flanked by Metroids and space pirates. He fires a shot towards Samus, who dodges, which then hits the artifact which Samus was tasked with bringing back, which then pulses out with energy, engulfing the planet and the area around Samus completely before fading back to the title screen. So I was really pleased with this demo, and I'm honestly, out of everything, I really liked Mario Kart and that exhilaration I got from playing the Knockout Tour mode, which was a lot of fun. But I think this game was this is my game of the show for sure. It's the game I'm looking forward to, that I played there more than anything else this year. So yeah, I've just really, really enjoyed it. Since we're running kind of long on this episode, I am going to jump to my impressions of Donkey Kong Bonanza before wrapping things up. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a new single-player Donkey Kong 3D adventure game. Not since the Nintendo 64 has Donkey Kong received this kind of game treatment. No longer will he be relegated to a 2D side-scrolling game exclusively. At this point in the day, I was running out of time to play much else, so I did skip through all of the story sequences to make sure I could play as much of the demo as possible. This demo was more wide open than Metroid Prime 4 was, which is more of a linear game, and so the demo was even more linear than that. So it wasn't really a structured demo experience. Donkey Kong has been given a new moveset for this game, as well as a new look. He also sports the same look that he sports in the new Mario Kart World game. This game features a super destructible environment, and Donkey Kong can truly tear it to pieces with his new moves. 3 of the 4 face buttons are used to punch in front of you, punch down from you, and punch up from you. Using this, Donkey Kong can wreck everything to find hidden treasures, loot, and new areas to explore. The main goal in the demo seemed to be finding these glowing crystal bananas, similar to the various stars found in 3D Mario games. This game is reportedly being developed by the same team that made Super Mario Odyssey and, all the mainline 3D Mario games. Donkey Kong Bonanza starts off with Donkey Kong in a mine area. I think this is his new day job, which he seems well suited for. He's wearing his classic tie as well as some overalls. Eventually, after completing the opening area of the game, where you're kind of learning the different abilities and moves and how to use them, Donkey Kong falls into this pit, which isn't just him falling into the pit, the whole area he's in falls into this pit. And he wakes up into this new, much more colorful area than the previous one. The mine, looked like a traditional, rocky brown mine. It's no joke to say that the ability to dig and climb on anything is truly going to open things up for the exploration of these levels. Expect there to be tons of secrets for those of you who are really willing to dig into the earth both up, down, and all around you. When Donkey Kong breaks parts of the environment, they turn into chunks, which can then be picked up, ridden around like a spinning top, or even tossed at enemies using the Nintendo Switch 2's gyro sensor. Different Earth materials can also be grabbed for different results. There was one material Donkey Kong could grab a clump of and toss that acted like a bomb, helping him quickly dispatch enemies and destroy large swaths of terrain. At one point in the demo, I stumbled into an area I wasn't supposed to be in, and the demo kicked me out to the beginning of the stage again. Whoops. I only fought a couple different enemies before my demo ended. I was hoping for a boss battle, but one never materialized before my time was up, and I had to leave the venue. There were several games I wasn't able to play, as the time just absolutely flew by. On the way out, they gave us all a really nice, full-sized, embroidered Nintendo Switch 2 branded backpack. I'm honestly really impressed with the quality, and I'm debating whether or not I want to use it. It's just that nice. It's one of the best freebies Nintendo's ever given me at any of their events. Now, before I sign off, I wanted to mention that I will be out of the country for the next 9 days or so, and that there will definitely not be an episode, and very likely not going to be an episode a week after that. So expect to hear from the Bit Beacon again the first week of May. Until then, take care, and end transmission.